Hello. Today I want to talk a little bit about how my paintings progress and develop and show you paintings at different stages of undoneness and talk a little bit about my thought processes and why I perhaps use the process that I do. So I think as artists it's really important for us to develop a process that responds to and aligns with the things that we love in our own artwork. So you'll see as we go through this video, my painting process involves layer upon layer of paint and building up a kind of rich, complex surface. And I do that on purpose because that is what I like in my end result. That is what excites me in my own painting. So I love all those sort of layers and hidden depths and things underneath other things and combinations. So that's why I've developed a process that appeals to those sensibilities and those things that enliven me in my own artwork. And I think that's a really important point, that the process and how we choose to make our art is an integral part of what we want to communicate, what we're trying to achieve. You know, I want my art to be a combination of expression and pattern. I want my art to have little wild areas and more controlled, neat areas. So I've developed a process, or the way I paint reflects that. So these are 2 of the 4 paintings that I'm currently working on. This is day 2 on these paintings, and they are in that sort of slightly hot mess phase where I now need to think about what they're going to be. On day 1, I primed and prepared these boards. So they're wooden cradled boards, and I tend to do 2 or 3 layers of gesso just to prime the boards and then do an undercoat or a coloured ground so you can see the sort of pale green peeping through. That was the first coat of paint. The next phase is really just adding in paint and colour and marks and texture, and I'm building up, wanting to build up an interesting painted surface with the little surprises and moments, interesting overlaps and juxtapositions. And so this is quite a playful sort of stage. It's when I'm just sort of playing and mixing paint. When these are dry, these are still a little bit tacky, so I'm going to leave them to dry completely overnight, and then I will come back to them and I will have to be a little bit more considered in terms of what these paintings are going to be, and that's when I go into my sketchbook. So when I'm starting on a series of paintings, I have vague ideas in the back of my mind, but I don't have a definitive, this is what my paintings are going to look like. I let them sort of unfurl. Here are some of the ideas that I'm sort of playing with as I was choosing what colours to mix up. This page here was sort of in my head. Blue, green, pink is a sort of colour palette that I want to explore. I did lots of drawings of these lilies, which I've shown you previously. I just enjoy some of the shapes and some of the things that are going on here. I'm trying to tune in to the things that I'm loving in my sketchbook and take them forward into this set of paintings. But I'm not going to kind of plan out or not going to draw out onto my painting. I like to invite in a bit of surprise and serendipity and accident and just sort of see where they go. But everyone has a different sort of working style, don't they? I find that if I draw something out and then paint it on the canvas or on the board, I feel very tight and restricted, and it feels like I have kind of predestined what the painting's going to be before I've sat down to paint. But I know other people really enjoy that and like that. So it's about finding a process, isn't it, that you enjoy and which kind of speaks to your sensibilities and your personality. I'm sort of mulling over some of these shapes, some of these colour combinations, some of these kind of motifs, but I haven't got a set idea about how they're going to turn out at all. I like the paintings to develop organically, but this is why my sketchbook is such a valuable resource for me. Although I like to be sort of free and easy in my painting and allow it to develop and not have a plan, I've got this like really helpful route map and security blanket and catalogue really of different ideas that I can pull on at any point. So for me, a sketchbook is really, it's like a lucky dip. I can go back and find things that I can then put into my paintings, but without necessarily planning them all out. So here are those two paintings after another session of painting. I think before, when I showed you, they were like exuberant toddlers, and now they are very much like messy teenagers. This is just the sort of messy middle. I showed you them when they're in this direction, but I've sort of decided on the orientation of this one. So this is the stage where I've blocked out some very rough compositional pieces, and now I need to try and wrestle them from this sort of messy teenager to well-rounded adults. So I've got the very basics of a composition going. I've got the kind of this curve of a chair, there's a vase or jug shape here, got a really kind of rough internal border going on. So I've mapped out roughly the direction of travel with these paintings, and now I need to try and turn them from something really kind of scrappy and messy into something more refined, hopefully. You know, there are so many different ways to paint a painting. And I think it's important for us to think about actually what is it that excites me? What are the sensibilities or the qualities in my artwork that I love? And how can I develop, evolve a process that respond to those kind of qualities? This is not, you know, how you should paint a painting. I just want to share some of my thoughts and ideas about how I paint paintings in case it's helpful to apply it to your own work. And I apologise about my gnome hat with the biggest bobble in the world. It is a very cold day today, so I'm wanting to keep nice and cosy. So here we are, another step forward in these paintings. They're still a bit scrappy and scruffy. They're moving in the right direction. So now I need to sort of tighten them and finesse them. I always really enjoy my paintings when they've got a bit of this kind of wild scruffiness with a bit of neatness and control. So this is where the paintings have got to. They are not finished yet. So I've probably been working on them on and off for about 10 days, and not 10 days solid, but just an hour here or a few hours there. I keep coming back to them and adding and evolving and developing and just kind of nudging them in the direction that feels interesting and exciting to me. So they're not finished. I tend to kind of sit with a painting for a few days or longer and just come and look at it again when there's a bit of space after I've actually painted it, because I can see different things. When I'm too close to the painting in terms of just having painted it, I can't necessarily see it with a real objectivity. So I often will leave paintings for a good while, come back to them, and then see what I see and see if I can see different things or things that just need tightening or slightly changing. And then when I think that they're done, I will varnish them, because I'm using really bright colours, and so I like to put a sort of satin varnish over the top to really protect some of those bright colours. And I also wanted to let you know that I've got a brand new online art class, a sketchbook mixed media class. In this hour together, I hope to do several things. I want to share some artists for us to look at that I think mix art supplies in a really interesting way. I want to share a little bit of theory and some thought processes to help you when you are mixing art supplies in your own sketchbook. I want to give you some practical processes and approaches and some mixes of media that I really enjoy and like. I want to show you inside my sketchbook, and my hope is at the end of this hour together you'll feel excited, inspired, and want to explore different combinations of art supplies in your own sketchbook. We're going to do 3 different exercises. The first is going to be a playful, messy warm-up, just taking our materials for a sort of test drive. The next 2 exercises, we're going to respond to a photograph. A sketchbook is a brilliant place to explore, experiment, discover. It's like your own little art laboratory. It's where we find out what we love in our own art. It's where we find out the combinations of materials that excite us.